Fan Yu's aunt had also seen the scene inside the classroom. The children sitting at the tables with their heads lowered were similar to the students shot inside her brother's group photo. After collapsing to the floor, fear was frozen on her face. She tried to stand up, but her limbs refused to listen to her command. Shush. Chen Ji rushed to the woman's side to grab her arm and half-dragged her out of the education block. The rumors were real. Regardless of their cause of death, the students had all returned to that classroom. You saw it, right? Right. Seeing them in a picture and seeing them in real life had a completely different feeling. The woman's eyes bulged out of their sockets, and her breath came haltingly. Let's leave this place for now. Chen Ji dragged Fan Yu's aunt to the entrance of the education block. Before they left, he turned back to glance at the classroom. The door and windows were closed, and it was completely dark within. I've been inside the school for so long already, and they haven't actively attacked me. Looks like they aren't malevolent spirits. Chen Ji had basis to believe that. The girl who was made insane by Fan Yu's father had committed suicide in that classroom, and the one who came out to help her was one of the spirits from that classroom. The people who wrote the warning notes to Fan Yu's father were the spirits. They were trying to protect the school students, even though their method was a bit wrong. Chen Ji held Fan Yu's aunt as they wandered over to Mu Yang High School's front gate. They stood beside it to avoid the rain. It was already past midnight. Chen Ji did not think it is wise to stay inside that 3 buildings, plus he had a random variable in Fan Yu's aunt to be concerned about. At around 1 a.m., the rain started to slow. There was light coming toward Mu Yang High School. When Chen Ji saw this, he immediately turned on his flashlight and cried for help. As the leaves of the forest parted, a group of people forced their way through in their raincoats. Here. The suspect has already been detained. Chen Ji was excited, but when he saw the person who was leading the way, his confidence dwindled. Why is it you again? When Inspector Li reached the gate and saw Chen Ji, his face began twitching. The same person has called the emergency hotline thrice in a week. This is the first time that has ever happened in the station's 35 years history. Did you know that? Even the officer who answers the calls felt like he can now recognize your voice. Chen Ji was made speechless by Inspector Li. He too felt embarrassed. He quickly hauled Fan Yu's aunt off the floor and led her to Inspector Li. Inspector Li asked his men to break the school's gate open, and before entering, he asked, "She's also a victim?" "No, she's one of the killers." Chen Ji handed Fan Yu's aunt over to one of the officers. "One of the killers?" Inspector Li flickered his flashlight thrice to alert his men. "There are other killers still hiding inside the school. The other killer is already dead." Chen Ji summarized everything he knew for Inspector Li. This woman's brother was a voyeur, and after the brother's wife found out, she used it to leverage a divorce. Unwilling to part, her brother killed his wife, and she happened to see her brother do that. To prevent herself from being killed, she killed her brother. So, it was self-defense. Inspector Li caught on to the key question. If that was the case, she should have reported to the police after that. However, after she killed her brother, she cleared the crime scene and left. The murder happened 3 years ago, and there is no other witness. Everything I know, it was she who told me. Chen Ji pointed at Fan Yu's aunt. So, it is not unlikely that she was lying. Where was the crime scene then? Inspector Li had skipped even asking why Chen Ji was there. Even the assisting officers took this in their stride like it was not out of the ordinary to find Chen Ji there. That, you'll need to ask her. Chen Ji also wanted to know the location of the well. That was the last of his 4 side missions. Inspector Li was far more experienced than Chen Ji at interrogating. He accepted a clean towel from his men before passing it to Fan Yu's aunt. Assault with intention to murder may send you to the chair, but if it was self-defense and the suspect shows signs of remorse, there might still be chance for you to see the light of day. Fan Yu's aunt gripped the towel silently. She did not look particularly afraid of death. Think about your family. At your age, you should have your own children by now. If you refuse to cooperate, you might never see them again. Inspector Li soon found an opening, and the moment he said that, Fan Yu's aunt started to waver. After 10 more minutes of persuasion, she finally spoke. The hiding spot is at the hill behind the school, but I can only remember a general direction. She led Chen Ji and the police to a small hill behind the school. The bodies were dropped down a well. At the time, there was a landslide and it covered the well completely. There was no road around Mu Yang High School for heavy-duty vehicles to enter. Thus, it would require manual labor if they wished to find that well. Chen Ji also considered that point. Inspector Lee, if we do not confirm her words as soon as possible, the case might shift when dawn arrives. Chen Ji squeezed to stand beside Inspector Lee. His heart was worried about his last side mission. Seal the scene first, and we'll wait for the crew to come with the necessary tools before the digging can start. Without the reminder from Chen Ji, Inspector Lee was already on the phone, arranging everything. At 2:15 a.m., the crew finally arrived. Inspector Lee assigned everyone their roles, and the digging began in earnest. Chen Ji also went to help by grabbing a shovel. He showed such conviction in his job that the officers were quite touched. At 3 a.m., the well at Muyang High School finally surfaced. At 4:30 a.m., the well was cracked open and 2 bodies were retrieved from within. At the same time, Chen Ji's black phone vibrated. He received the mission accomplished message. Putting down the shovel, Chen Ji found a secluded spot and clicked the message open. You managed to reach the mission location on time, successfully experienced all 4 side missions, and survived until dawn. Muyang High School trial mission successful. A new scenario has been unlocked. Player can manipulate the props inside the set freely using the interface available on the phone. Trial mission completion rate more than 90%. Unlock this mission's hidden item, the cursed ballpoint pen. The cursed ballpoint pen, broken, the pen spirit refused to answer to your call. It rolled its eyes at you before hiding away. Reading the mission clear message, Chen Ji sighed in relief. This trial mission with a 2-star scream factor had been easier than he anticipated, but that was probably because the spirits inside Muyang High School meant him no harm. When he was halfway through the mission, he had already noticed that the residents of Muyang High School were not baleful specters. Including the pen spirit, they had no malicious intent. What had happened to Fan Yu's father was merely karma. The most difficult side missions were definitely the classroom and the deep well. Even now, he still had not truly uncovered the mystery of the sealed classroom. He did go into experience at once, and thankfully, the spirits inside did not make things too difficult for him. The difficulty of the deep well mission was high as well. Even with the aid of the police, they had dug for a whole night before locating the well before dawn. If he had attempted that alone, he definitely would have failed the mission. Chen Ji felt satisfied with the rewards. He did not mind too much about the unlocked hidden item. According to legend, pen spirits could predict the future, but his pen spirit did not seem to be knowledgeable about anything and had no principles or morals. The rain that had continued throughout the night finally stopped. The police did not forget to praise Chen Ji for his contribution. After taking his testimony, they drove him home. The emergency call and a whole night of digging had led to tired officers. Inside the car, the one sitting next to Chen Ji was falling asleep. Chen Ji nudged his own body to the door to make space for the officer. The journey home was silent. Chen Ji arrived at New Century Park at 6 a.m. It could have been the yin-yang vision or constant exposure to spirits, but Chen Ji felt incredibly cold. He lay in his bed, but sleep would not come. He turned to his phone and was shocked to realize there were more than 10 unanswered calls and unread messages. Most of them came from He-san, mainly asking about his safety and whether he needed to call the police. At the bottom of the inbox was a message from Dr. Gao. The good doctor said that Fan Yu's symptoms might be related to the people around him, and he advised Chen Ji to pay closer attention to such individuals in the boy's life. The message was sent at 12:30 a.m. By then, Fan Yu's aunt had come clean to Chen Ji. After replying to both He-san and Dr. Gao, Chen Ji opened the video sharing app and clicked into his personal page. A 4-hour live stream but not a word with the chat, and I even closed the stream several times in the middle without warning. I can only imagine the damage that was done to my popularity. After detaining Fan Yu's aunt, Chen Ji had closed the live stream in deference to Fan Yu's privacy and future. He did not have the time to explain the situation to his viewers, his attention had been required elsewhere. After loading the main page, Chen Ji glanced at the interface and was shocked to realize that his livestream's followers had increased to 39,000 users. I remember, before the live stream, I had less than 10,000 followers. What happened last night during the live stream? He had been so occupied with the side mission that he had allowed the live stream to play on its own. He did not think too much of it, so he was surprised by the sudden reward. Just as Chen Ji was trying to figure out what had happened, He-san's call came. As he answered it, he could hear the commotion on the other side. Boss. I knew you're still alive. Chen Ji ignored He-san's celebration and asked directly, what happened last night during my livestream? Why did my followers and views grow so tremendously? Since you started your live stream last night, the number has been growing, but it was incredibly slow until you started to play the pen spirit game. Someone created a thread on the app forum exposing Qin Guang for his plagiarism and then even attached your first livestream. He-san's voice turned sharp from indignation. Qin Guang's livestream plagiarized your content down to the analysis, set, and even the identity of the killer, who was played by an actor. The evidence was right before their eyes, but Qin Guang's fans refused to admit it. They started to slander your name in the thread, saying that it was you who was mimicking their idol. Probably just the 50-cent army one, nothing unusual. Then what happened next? Many viewers went to Qin Guang's livestream to demand an explanation, but Qin Guang pretended not to have seen them. Not only that, he banned any viewers who brought up your name. However, with his high popularity and the all-in promotion by the platform, there were 800,000 viewers at the start of his livestream, and with the chat scrolling so fast, his team missed some of your mentions. Thus, a number of his viewers who were curious came over to your livestream. He-san got increasingly excited. The highest viewers during your livestream was 50,000, but it was the combination of passersby, paid viewers, Qin Guang's fans, and your own fans. It was a mess. You don't have any mods in your livestream, so even after the livestream had stopped, the chat kept going for another half an hour. By the way, thanks to this chaos, your livestream entered the popular ranking for the midnight session. Congratulations, not many newbie hosts can enter that ranking so early in their career. Chen Ji could imagine the chaos in his livestream last night, but it was a blessing in disguise since his follower number did have a tremendous increase. After all, he was not lacking in content but exposure. Slow down. After all, that was just my second livestream. Chen Ji talked for a few more minutes with He-san before hanging up. He looked at the private messages that he had received from the other users of the app. Most of them were curses, but there were a few who could not stand Qin Guang's bullying and chose to send Chen Ji their support. Near the bottom of his inbox, Chen Ji recognized a familiar user handler. The profile picture was similar to the studio that had harassed him before. The message warned him to not resort to dirty tricks, or he would make sure Chen Ji was unable to survive on this platform. If another host saw this, they might have been afraid, but Chen Ji was different. Live streaming and posting short videos were merely ways for him to promote his haunted house. After blocking this account, Chen Ji exited the app and picked up the black phone. Muyang High School, Scream Factor 2 stars. The setting up of the scenario has been completed. You can now go down to the subterranean level to visit it. Warning, Muyang High School is considered part of the 4-star scenario, School of the Afterlife. Its space is twice the size of a normal scenario. Please familiarize yourself with the interior layout before putting it to use. After looking at the message on the phone, Chen Ji sat up in bed. The size is twice normal scenarios. Wait, don't tell me, the whole of Muyang High School has been moved here. He put on his shoes and ran to the first floor, peeled off the wooden boards, and peered downward. The abandoned underground parking lot had been given a new look. The stairs had signs of being charred, the darkened corridor was littered with unfinished test papers, the doors to the classrooms creaked in the darkness, and shadows could be seen flitting between the upturned tables. Xiao Chen, where have you been? Why are you so late for work? Uncle Shu pulled Chen Ji to stand behind him, afraid that the mob might harm the young man. I just came back from the district station. I was helping the police with a murder case. Huh. Not only Uncle Shu, even the mob who surrounded Chen Ji was shocked. Normally, the reason given for truancy was either a traffic jam or stomachache. Being involved in a murder case was truly an excuse they had not heard about before. Murder case. Uncle Shu looked at Chen Ji with shock and had forgotten the urgent matter at hand. Yup, but the case is different from the earlier murder at the apartment. It probably won't be broadcasted on the mass media. There was an earlier murder. The raging mob's aggression suddenly dwindled. All right, leave this to me. Chen Ji stood facing the crowd and said, "You guys are looking for me." With just one question, Chen Ji managed to extinguish the little momentum the mob had left. The crowd that blocked the entrance to the haunted house looked at each other before shoving out a middle-aged man, who was shortest among them, to face Chen Ji. "We are from Qin Guang's studio. Last night, you employed unethical tactics by hiring a 50-cent army to spread rumors that are damaging to Qin Guang's reputation. I'm the one who employed unethical tactics. You people sure know how to create story. Who the real unethical plagiarist here is, you know yourselves." Chen Ji cut the man off instantly. "If there's nothing else, please leave the premises. You are interrupting my business. Qin Guang merely chose to have the live stream at the same location as you. That is not a basis for you to claim that he plagiarized your work simply because you happened to shoot at the location first." The middle-aged man stood his ground and tried to argue with Chen Ji. "A simple comparison between our live streams show that Qin Guang mimicked even my starting analysis while trapped inside the bedroom. If that is not plagiarism, what is? At most, he only copied your beginning. The plot that developed after that was his own creativity. Of course, it cannot be called plagiarism. At the very worst, you can call it a homage. Chen Ji had never seen such a shameless person before. He knew reasoning with them would be a waste of time, so he walked past them to open the gate and prepare for business. You are new to the scene, so we understand your drive to succeed, but you have to know that this job is not that easy. The middle-aged man pulled out a document from his bag. Chen Ji had initially thought it was some kind of lawyer's letter, but he had overestimated his opponent's conviction. You are not from this field, so you don't understand certain things, that's fine, but most established hosts are made with gold and popularity. It might appear that you have caught some popularity for now, but the platform will never support a newcomer and abandon Qin Guang because Qin Guang is the platform's key promoter. His success is tied to the success of the platform itself. The middle-aged man waved the document in his hand. If you agree to stop the malicious attacks against Qin Guang and post a public apology on your personal account, we will compensate you accordingly. However, if you insist on walking down the wrong place and harassing Qin Guang and any of his affiliates to brush up the popularity of your own livestream, we will contact the platform to block you from all of its channels. Don't try to shift the blame onto the viewers, they are completely innocent. If anything, the viewers simply cannot stomach the open bullying and came to support me. Chen Ji did not give a damn about the threat. After all, the platform had never helped him once before. Even he himself did not know how he had managed to achieve his current popularity. Being rash benefits no one, why don't you think about it first? The middle-aged man's attitude softened, the unreasonableness that was evident before Chen Ji arrived had completely disappeared. Around 6 of them had come to create trouble for Chen Ji, but the first sentence out of the man's lips when he arrived had thrown a wrench into their plan. Then again, they could not totally be blamed. Any normal person would be cautioned when they realized that the person they were dealing with had been involved in not 1 but 2 murder cases. There's nothing to consider. I've already discovered the unique selling point of my livestream and videos. Even if I'm forced to leave this platform, I'll just regain my follower base elsewhere. Chen Ji chased the people from Qin Guang's studio aside and informed Xu Wan to start preparing for work. He had raced about the whole night, so he was tired. He sat in the ticket booth selling tickets. After the first few waves of visitors exited the haunted house, the people from Qin Guang's studio returned. You people sure are insistent. If you're not here to visit the haunted house, please move aside, you're blocking the path for the real visitors. Even a saint would lose their temper when pushed too hard. Chen Ji had been polite enough, but these people kept testing his patience. Who said we're not here to visit the haunted house? We also wish to experience the place that is dubbed the scariest haunted house in Jiuzhang. 2 young men from the studio with backpacks blocked the gate. You also want to visit the haunted house. Naturally, Chen Ji suspected that these people were up to no good. If you're afraid that we might expose your fake advertising, then fine, we won't enter. Of the 2 young men, one was extremely well built. He wore a tank top to purposely reveal his body that was the result of constant weight training. Honestly, Chen Ji was a bit taunted by this guy. Let me remind you, the last person who made a claim like yours came out lying on his back. You've only managed to arouse my interest even more. Standing beside the muscular man was a meek-looking bespectacled man. I've watched scary movies since I was young. Before being recruited by Brother Chin, I was part of a scary movie film crew. Alas, most of the movie settings were too fake, they were barely challenging. I do love customers like yourself who are constantly searching for a greater scare. Chen Ji pulled the curtain back. Come in then, remember to sign the disclaimer agreement. Since there were willing lab rats, Chen Ji naturally would not send them away. Even the smile on his face had turned several degrees sincerer. When Uncle Shu saw the smile on Chen Ji's face, he shivered involuntarily, and the image of the forensic science students from Jiuzhang Medical University lying weakly on the floor appeared in his mind. Uncle Shu coughed and pulled him to the side. Xiao Chen, don't go overboard. Remember, they are still park visitors. Before Chen Ji could reply, the bespectacled young man thought that he had seen through their plot and scoffed with derision. Well. That's some pretty good acting. The experience has started even before we enter the haunted house. Before I arrived, I saw the reviews on the haunted house, and many people said that the owner knows a bit of psychology. It looks like they weren't lying. Uncle Shu looked at the young man with a speechless expression on his face. I'm trying to help you here. If not for the fact you might die inside there, I would not have cared about you. Uncle Shu, I know the limits. Don't worry. Chen Ji led the two young men into the haunted house personally and saw them sign the disclaimer agreement. The larger, muscular man was called Zhu Jining, and the bespectacled man was Fei Yulang. When you're inside, no photos or filming. There are 4 different scenarios for you to experience. They are the sealed classroom, the 5th cubicle in the toilet, the pen spirit, and the deep well. The clues to the exit are hidden within these 4 scenarios. You'll need to experience all of them before you can find the exit. Chen Ji looked through their disclaimer agreement repeatedly. He was so careful because the agreements might serve their purpose soon enough. This is not our first haunted house, we know all that. Fei Yulang pushed on his spectacles and peered inside the haunted house. At least the suspenseful environment is not bad. In that case, I will not waste my breath anymore. Chen Ji had intended to make some small introduction to each of the small scenarios, but he decided that would not be necessary. Follow me. Chen Ji led the 2 young men to the entrance to Night of the Living Dead on the 1st floor. The 2 saw the dilapidated setting and less than desirable mannequins that populated the scenario. The style is from 10 years back. Honestly, with set pieces like these, I feel like I can sue you for overcharging me for the entrance ticket. Zhu Jining and Fei Yulang wandered into the Night of the Living Dead scenario and touched the dust that had gathered on the mannequins. Just how long has this place been deserted? Looks like the business is dying. I should have known that you would have hired the same 50-cent army to fill the comments with good reviews. Are you 2 done? Chen Ji raised the wooden boards from the floor. The entrance is here. It's underground. The 2 young men did not feel weirded out. They walked out of the Night of the Living Dead scenario with their backpacks and stopped before the staircase that led down the stairs. The dark corridor led into an abyss. The doors to the classrooms on both sides creaked creepily, and even before they got down the stairs, a chilling wind surged from within to caress their skin. Now. This is better. As the 2 young men entered the Muyang High School scenario, Chen Ji yelled from the entrance, "If you're really afraid, yell for help at the cameras, the workers will come help you." After closing the boards, Chen Ji suddenly realized that there was no surveillance installed in the Muyang High School scenario, and there was not really an exit. He had just been saying that earlier out of habit. Looks like I better go in to join them. Hopefully, their minds are still intact when I reach them. He had Shu Wan stay at the door to maintain the order. He put on the Dr. Skullcracker outfit and entered the main control room to switch the background music to Black Friday before entering the Muyang High School scenario with the box of name tags given to him by Fan Yu. After Zhu Jining and Fei Yulang descended the staircase, they stayed near the entrance. Both of them waited until Chen Ji closed the wooden boards before they made a signal and retrieved Bluetooth cameras from their backpacks and pinned them on their chests. Each of us will record our side. We'll film everything inside his haunted house, and after we solve it, we'll post the guide online. Will that achieve anything? For local haunted houses like this one, the design and traps of the scenarios are considered business secrets because they depend on them to attract visitors. If the guide is already posted online, then it would have lost all its allure. This is why haunted houses ban the usage of cameras and video recorders. They have to keep the mystery and anticipation up for future visitors. Fei Yulang fixed his camera and walked in front. After shooting the video, we'll edit it to make it as boring as possible, and then after posting it online, we'll hire some 50-cent army to swamp his comments with bad reviews. Okay. After he looked around, Zhu Jining added, "But I have to say, the man has put a lot of effort into his setting. It does feel like we're at an abandoned high school. At the end of the day, it is still fake. In comparison to the 3D scary movies I've seen, this is nothing." Fei Yulang was not afraid, if anything, he was bored. Let's get this over with. The 2 walked down the dim corridor. On each side of them were empty classrooms. The doors creaked on their hinges, and weird noises occasionally drifted out from the classrooms. Do you think the exit will be inside these 2 classrooms beside the entrance? After all, the comments did say that the boss is a master manipulator. That's your first mistake. If you focus too hard on searching for the exit, you will have fallen for the man's scheme. When Fei Yulang was talking, he did not forget to maintain the balance of his upper body. Both he and Zhu Jining were expert cameramen. You're right. Thankfully, you came with me. In reality, haunted houses are very boring. It's just people scaring people, and if you take it too seriously, you lose. The end of the dark corridor was still nowhere to be seen. Even though they said that they were not afraid, their progress was glacially slow. The signs of a fire could be seen everywhere, and the unique scent of burning was mixed in the stall air. As living humans entered the scenario, the atmosphere inside Muyang High School slowly changed. In an unseen corner, many pairs of eyes slowly opened. Fei Yuling, who walked forward, was a scary movie aficionado. As authentic as the setting was, it was not scary enough to make him feel afraid yet. In comparison, the muscular man, Zhu Jining, started to wilt under pressure. He hid himself behind Fei Yuling and his eyes kept wandering about to the dark corners. The background music was not that scary, but it made his heart rate race and his breathing uneven. Fei Yuling suddenly stopped, causing Zhu Jining to walk into the man's back. "What's wrong?" Zhu Jining said in a volume that he did not realize had become a whisper. "This classroom, it's different from the rest." Fei Yuling stood at the door of the sealed classroom. Looking at the dark-colored uniforms that filled the chairs, he had a weird feeling that the classroom was filled with students. There are all these uniforms. Zhu Jining was even more scared than Fei Yuling. Just a glance through the window was enough to make him shiver. "Should we go to someplace else first?" "Don't be scared. A worker at the haunted house should be hiding inside this room, and that's why its decor is different from the others." Fei Yuling could still maintain his calmness. "The man said that we must experience the 4 scenarios, and this should be one of them. This is the selling point of the haunted house, we have to record it and then solve it so that we can post it online." While he was talking, the door slowly opened on its own like being moved by an invisible hand. There must be some kind of control mechanism. It's common equipment used in the shooting of scary movies. Fei Yuling slapped Zhu Jining on his arm. "Come on, let's go catch some ghosts." "You're right, but," Zhu Jining said with a head full of cold sweat, "I've taken a look around, and there are only school uniforms inside the room. There's no space for anyone to hide. There's probably some hidden compartment. Be careful. This means that the actor might come out to scare you from unexpected corners." Fei Yuling and Zhu Jining dawdled outside the classroom for a long time before finally entering it. The sealed classroom was a place that even Chen Ji did not want to stay in for long, but Fei Yuling and Zhu Jining entered it easily. There was a weird smell in the air. Entering the room was like going underwater. There was an inexplicable pressure pressing down on them, causing their breathing to become rather uneven. "Yuling, should I wait for you outside?" The classroom was darker than the corridor. Zhu Jining, who stood behind Fei Yuling, had a frightened grimace on his face, and his forehead was covered with sweat. "What did we promise each other before entering the haunted house? We said we'd never abandon each now, but now you're already giving up." Fei Yuling was getting increasingly agitated. The uniforms that littered the room were not unlike the props that were used in scary movies. For some reason, he felt apprehensive about going near them. Zhu Jining did not notice that his teammates' confidence had been shattered. He whispered from behind him, "Where do you think the haunted house's worker will be hiding? Will they jump up from underneath the uniforms?" "Not clear, but they would normally do something like that." Fei Yuling nudged his way to the lectern. He gripped his fists as he walked down the rows of tables, but nothing scary happened. "It does not seem like there's anyone hiding here." "But if there's no one hiding here, why waste so many resources to create such a large and detailed set? There is what looks like blood writing carved onto the tables, and these old uniforms were purposely left in the room." Zhu Jining glanced behind him. "Furthermore, the door opened on its own earlier like it was inviting us to come in." "It was probably the wind." Fei Yuling turned to glare at Zhu Jining. "If you have the time to mumble this nonsense, come and help me look for the hidden mechanism or trick." "Don't be mad, I'm just helping you analyze the situation." Zhu Jining headed in the other direction of the room. Due to his large body, when he walked past one of tables, he accidentally knocked one of the uniforms to the floor. He did not mind it and did not seem intent on picking it up. He stepped on the uniform and continued to walk until he reached the classroom's back door. "There is indeed nothing worth getting scared over. I was expecting something to pounce at me when I passed the tables." Zhu Jining's voice faded out. He turned and realized that the classroom had reverted to its original state. "When I walked down the row, I remember knocking into one of the uniforms." "Yuling, did you pick it up from the floor?" "A uniform that fell to the floor." "How come I didn't notice it?" Fei Yuling stood at the other end of the classroom, a distance of several tables away. "Was I imagining it?" Zhu Jining walked back up the row. He stood beside the table that was situated at the center of the room. "I remember it was this uniform that fell to the floor." He picked the uniform up and waved it once. A weird odor drifted out from it. It smelled like rotten fish. "This is weird." Zhu Jining dropped the uniform onto the table and squatted down to inspect the table and chair for hidden mechanisms. He shook the table, and everything seemed normal. Just as he was about to move on, the sound of marbles came from inside the drawer. "There's something inside." Zhu Jining bent down and leaned into the mouth of the drawer. The dark drawer was stuffed with test papers and textbooks. Why was there the sound of marbles? There's hidden compartment inside this drawer. He looked into the darkness and reached in to pull out the papers. He only pulled out the first one when he saw two round eyes staring right at him from behind the paper. FCK. The sudden scare caused Jujining, who was half squatted, to stumble back and knock the two tables behind him out of position. What's wrong? The commotion shocked Fei Yulang, who was also in the room. There's someone inside the drawer. Jujining tried to crawl up from the floor, but his limbs failed him. His face was drained of blood. Have you lost your mind? How can a person fit inside a drawer? Fei Yulang cursed as he went to help his teammate. It's probably some kind of prop. He pulled out the papers and textbooks from inside the drawer and dropped them onto the floor. Take a look. Don't be such a scaredy cat, there's nothing inside. After 10 seconds to calm himself down, Jujining finally climbed up from the floor. But I really saw a pair of eyes. I'm not lying. I swear on my life. Even if that's true, it's just a trick of the haunted house. Why are you so scared? Fei Yulang was not that scared to begin with, but what Jujining said did unsettle him a little. Fine, let's leave this room for now. The pair escaped in a hurry, leaving behind a trail of chaos. Do we need to continue? Jujining asked. Looking at the corridor that seemingly had no end, his heart was quivering. You're giving up in less than 5 minutes. We're here to ruin this place, not to do promotion for this haunted house. Fei Yulang had half a mind to kick Jujining. Get a hold of yourself. Why are you acting all scared like a little girl? How are you going to answer to your muscles? Then he continued to move forward. Even though Jujining was afraid, it would be worse to be abandoned or labeled a traitor of Qin Guang's studio, so he powered on. As he moved forward, he looked over his shoulder. When he saw the door to the sealed classroom slowly open again, he quickly caught up to Fei Yulang and hissed, "Let's go, it feels like something is coming out from that classroom." The pair ran forward in a hurry. They ignored the toilet and arrived at the first junction. Just how big is this set? There's even a choice of paths. Jujining had completely given up, and Fei Yulang was frowning deeply. He loved scary movies and had visited many haunted houses in his life, but this was the first time he had encountered such a haunted house. They had not seen any haunted house workers in ghost costumes, but the feeling of fear refused to leave. The longer they remained, the stronger that feeling became. In the haunted houses that he visited in the past, he could still see the ghosts, and with the appearance of the ghosts, he would feel much better because all those ghosts were actors hired by the haunted house. It told him that the place was fake, it was all a human creation. However, the haunted house he was in that day had completely upended his preconception of haunted houses. There were no actors so far, but it had managed to create an inexplicable feeling of suspenseful fear, like something incredibly scary might happen at any moment. Let's try this way. The corridor narrowed as Fei Yulang and Jujining headed toward the female dormitory. The front few rooms were not scary, and their emotions slowly relaxed as the fear surrounding their hearts slowly disappeared. Then they entered the room with the pen spirit game. In the female bedroom that was preserved like a crime scene, 4 chairs stood side by side, and several pieces of white paper as well as a ballpoint pen that was glued together with tape sat on one of the chairs. This bedroom feels different from the rest, Jujining commented at the door. The man seemed like he was about to run at any moment. It has that escape the room feel. The clues to the exit are probably hidden here as well, right? No idea, this is the first time I visited a haunted house that gave its visitors such a great degree of freedom. The boss sure is confident that no accidents will happen to his customers. Fei Yulang walked to the chairs and picked up a random piece of white paper. On it, it was written, "When will I die? How will I die? Who will be the next to die?" This looks like the pen spirit game, but Fei Yulang turned to look at the ballpoint pen on the chair. Isn't this pen a bit too unconventional? Does it contain some kind of hidden mechanism? Jujining also walked over to hold the pen in his palm. He pressed on it for several times and almost broke the pen. It seems like a normal pen to me. Do you still remember what the haunted house boss said before we came in? There are 4 scenarios in the haunted house, and we have to experience them all before we can get the clues to the exit. That's right. The clues are hidden in the 4 small scenarios. Let's take a closer look around. In my experience, there's probably a key or paper note hidden inside this bedroom. The bedroom was small, and the pair searched every corner but came up with nothing. This haunted house is not that easy to unlock, and the design are incredibly detailed. Fei Yulang placed the paper on the table. 3 of them had writing on, but 1 was left blank. Does this mean that we have to play the pen spirit game at least once before we can get the answer? Playing the pen spirit game inside a haunted house doesn't sound like a good idea. Jujining was flustered after reading the writing on the sheets of paper. Of the 4 scenarios, this one seems the simplest. If you don't want to do this, we'll need to go back to that classroom. Would you prefer that? Fei Yulang waved his hand impatiently. Plus, do you really think there is a pen spirit in this world? Get over here. We'll try it once, and if it doesn't work, we'll leave. Fei Yulang felt something was off, and he felt weirdly uncomfortable, like something was grasping his heart. Zhu Yuling unwillingly walked toward Fei Yulang. They stood on opposite sides of the chairs. But I don't know how the game works. Don't worry, I've seen many movies about the pen spirit. I've even tried it out a few times at home. It's just a trick and can be scientifically explained. Fei Yulang straightened the pen and hovered it over the single paper that was empty. Cross your fingers over mine and grab the pen tightly. Okay. Zhu Jining squatted down beside the chair and did what he was told. Now what? Just be quiet. Fei Yulang wrote down yes and no on the white paper. When the bedroom became completely quiet, he started to chant, pen spirit, you are my spirit from my previous life, and I am your spirit in this life. If you are with us, please draw a circle on the paper. As he finished, a cold blast of wind suddenly shook the half-open door of the bedroom. The dilapidated door slowly opened to reveal the empty and dim corridor. Zhu Jining shivered and shrunk involuntarily into the room. Stop moving. Fei Yulang stared at the sharp end of the pen, his body frozen like a statue. The chilling wind streamed through the bedroom. The paper on the floor fluttered like an invisible hand was flipping through them. The temperature dropped, and coldness seeped up from their ankles. When someone is asked to hold the same position under a highly stressful situation, one's senses would be heightened. This was not unlike a form of torture for the pair who was in the middle of the pen spirit game. The decrepit bedroom seemed to turn darker, and the dirtied bedsheet moved in the wind like something was crawling out from underneath the bed. 10 minutes later, the pair's hands, which hung in midair, started to tremble, and a series of dots started to appear on the paper. Zhu Jining could not help but ask, has the pen spirit arrived? He could not withstand this kind of tense atmosphere. Many movies set the time for pen spirit to appear after 10 minutes. If there's no reaction within 10 minutes, it means that the game has failed, but this is a made-up rule. Often, people think that the pen spirit has arrived, but in reality, it is merely a psychological effect, Fei Yuling said to calm his teammate. This place is one of the 4 scenarios mentioned by the boss. We'll try to follow his rules for now and see what kind of tricks he can play on us. As he finished, the ballpoint pen in their hands moved. It was a slight movement, but both of them felt it. Was that you? Both asked at the same time, and they managed to see the shock registered on the other person's face. It wasn't me, Zhu Jining denied in a hurry. He had completely recovered from the fear brought on by the pair of eyes, and now this happened. He was in a highly tense state. Yuling, do you think the real pen spirit has arrived? Don't be silly. The pen spirit game utilizes the game's format and the environment to create psychological pressure. The elongated time of maintaining a constant posture will cause the pen to appear like it has moved on its own, even though it is actually the result of our bodies reacting to the environmental and physiological stimulus, Fei Yuling stated in a tone that sounded like he was persuading himself. Our subconscious imagines that the pen has moved, and it has influenced our conscious mind. However, as he finished, the pen moved again, and it was very obvious this time. The pair looked at each other before both turned toward the paper in unison. The little dots on the paper were connected by a line to form an irregular circle. FCK. It's really here. Zhu Jining's first reaction was to pull his hand back, but he was stopped by Fei Yulang. Whether or not it is the real pen spirit, we have to continue this game. Why? If it is the real pen spirit, if we end the game without sending it off, we'll be cursed by the spirit until we die. If it is fake, then there is no reason for us to be afraid, and everything is just a trick arranged by the boss to scare us. Then what shall we do next? Try to ask it some questions, and then send the pen spirit away, Fei Yuling said calmly. What kind of questions we should ask? Questions like the ones written on the other paper. Zhu Jining pointed at the pieces of paper that littered the floor. That is a trap. We must not ask the pen spirit questions that are related to death. Try to ask some random questions. Random questions. Yes, let me try. Fei Yuling gripped Zhu Jining's hand tightly. After a pause, he shushed Zhu Jining, and he muttered softly, pen spirit, can you tell me the name of my future wife? To Fei Yulang's surprise, when he finished the question, the wind inside the bedroom suddenly stopped blowing, and an insurmountable pressure started to expand from behind him. The pen in their hands quivered violently, and soon 3 words appeared on the white paper. You will die. You will die. Fei Yulang was confused. He had asked about his future wife's name, but why would such a curse come out? There was no connection between them. He made sure he had followed the rules of the pen spirit game closely. He did not do anything that should have angered the pen spirit. He thought about it, and an answer came to him. This must be one of the preset designs. No matter what question I asked, these 3 words were destined to appear. Feeling like he had seen through the boss trick, the confidence that Fei Yulang had lost earlier started to resurface. The method to make these 3 words appear is interesting. Temporarily, I still don't understand it, but to amplify the fear factor, the boss has forgotten to take care of the situation's sense of logic, he explained. If it were any other visitor, they probably would have ended the pen spirit game or done something taboo to anger the pen spirit in their panic, and the appearance of these 3 words would have heightened their internal suspicion, thinking that the pen spirit had really appeared and allowed themselves to be feared. Unfortunately, their visitors today are the 2 of us. We have made no mistakes along the way, but the answer on the paper still comes up as irrelevant to my question. Therefore, this pen spirit game is nothing more than a scary trick. Even after his long explanation, Fei Yulang realized that Zhu Jining still had not responded, making him feel like he was talking to a wall. Xiaoju. Why is your hand so cold? He raised his head and saw Zhu Jining was staring dumbly at the space behind him, his mouth wide open and his features twisted in abject fear. What are you looking at? The expression on Zhu Jining's face unsettled Fei Yulang. He did not seem to hear his teammate, and his whole body was shivering, just like the broken ballpoint pen they were holding. A bad feeling appeared in Fei Yulang's heart. He had also sensed that the atmosphere in the bedroom had changed. There was an indescribable presence that had joined them in the room, one that had not been there earlier, and it felt like it was just behind him. He wanted to turn to take a look, but something pressed down on his back, and every muscle in his body tensed. What's going on? What's behind this? Various questions flashed across his mind, and the feeling of wanting to take a look but being afraid of what he might see made the man crazy. Xiaoju, tell me, what are you seeing? What is behind me? A chill soon spread through his body. It felt like he had been dropped into an icy cave. Fei Yulang shivered involuntarily, and various purplish bruises appeared on his skin, like many invisible hands were grabbing him. The thing behind him felt like it was trying to squeeze itself into his body, and the chilling presence pushing down on his shoulders became heavier and heavier. Opposite him, Zhu Jining seemed to use every energy in his body to squeeze out a warning. There's someone behind you. Behind me. There were 2 explanations to this warning: either someone was literally on his back or someone was standing behind him. Fei Yulang's brain was churning when Zhu Jining suddenly jumped up from the floor, shook Fei Yulang's hand off, and ran out the room. Zhu Jining did not hesitate or even turn around once in his escape. Fei Yulang, who was abandoned, still sat dumbly on the floor. The ballpoint pen seemed to have stuck to his hand, and no matter how hard he tried to shake it loose, it simply would not come off. Suddenly, his arm froze like something had taken control of it. Then the pen started to move on its own to write on the white paper. You will die. You will die. You will die. The series of blood-red curses appeared on the white paper. Zhu Jining had already left, and the one holding the pen was himself. He was certain that he did not move his hand, so this meant that these curses were written by something else in the room. Even at a time like that, Fei Yulang still managed to maintain his cool. He was an adrenaline junkie, and he did not believe in ghosts. He believed in the rationality and logic of science above all else. The thing that Xiaoju saw is probably some 3D imaging. Since the chairs are arranged in such a manner, it means that the position of the pen spirit game is constant. With the careful manipulation of angles, it would create an authentic-looking effect. That should be the tactic employed there, but why would my body be shaking? He admitted that he had underestimated this broken ballpoint pen and the haunted house in general. If given another chance, he would not have entered the haunted house with so little preparation, and he definitely would have picked a better partner. The chill on his back continued to spread. As if depleted, the pen in Fei Yulang's palm finally collapsed and broke into pieces after it finished the crazy scrawls. When the pen left his palm, the last word it wrote was die. Is it over? Fei Yulang felt his senses returning to his arm. It was then that he finally sighed in relief. His muscles were still rather frozen. He wanted to work some temperature into them, but he realized the pressure on his shoulders had not left, and he was still unable to move. He had thought he had survived the pen spirit game, but the real experience had just started. Why can't I move still? Fei Yuling creaked his neck inch by inch to look over his shoulder. His eyes were narrowed into slits, and he was fully prepared, but when he turned, he saw there was nothing behind him. It was all for naught. But then why would Xiaoju react in such a crazy manner? What did he actually see? Fei Yuling's mind churned hastily, and the pressure on his shoulders increased like someone was stepping on them. Shoulders. Stepping on them. An image flashed through his mind, and Fei Yuling slowly raised his head. Raven black hair falling all over her head, her face bloated from asphyxiation, the eyes popping out of her pockets, anger rimming the edges. There was a hanging woman standing on Fei Yuling's shoulders. His lips fell open, but no sound came out. Every hair on his body stood upright, and his glasses slowly slid off his face. Fei Yuling felt as if his heart had stopped at that moment. Before finishing the sentence, the focus in his eyes started to lax, and his body collapsed weakly toward the floor. Chen Ji waited for a few minutes before entering Mu Yang High School's scenario. He did not want to enter too soon after the two previous visitors. I haven't heard any screams for so long, looks like I underestimated those two. After putting on the skin mask, Chen Ji's first destination was the sealed classroom. He placed the paper box with the 24 name tags on the lectern. The tables and chairs have been moved. They have been here and probably stumbled across something. What that something was, Chen Ji had no clue. After all, even he had not fully understood the secret of this sealed classroom yet. After putting the tables and chairs back into position, and the papers and textbooks back into the drawer, Chen Ji suddenly heard footsteps coming from the junction not far ahead. Someone was running through the corridor. Who could that be? He put on the bloodied coat and the mask made from multiple human faces and slowly slipped out of the classroom. The footsteps sounded hurried, like the person was running away from some scary beast. When Chen Ji exited the classroom, he saw the person responsible for it. The 1.8-meter tall Zhu Jining rushed out of the female dormitory, screaming for dear life. His face was blanched, and he raced down the corridor like a mad bull. What's going on? Based on his running direction, he probably ran into something scary inside the female dormitory, but there's nothing scary inside the female bedrooms. Zhu Jining was already scared out of his mind before Chen Ji even did anything. This gave Chen Ji a sense of helplessness. Didn't they say they're not afraid of anything? Weren't they very calm when they entered the scenario? Why is he running amok like a rabid dog now? Chen Ji also did not know what encounter they had experienced in the newly unlocked scenario. For the sake of safety, he decided to intercept Zhu Jining to ask him for details. Zhu Jining, who had raced out of the female bedroom, did not even have a chance to catch his breath before he saw a shadow moving inside the sealed classroom. The school uniform has come alive. The thought appeared in his mind immediately. He was racing so fast that he did not have the momentum to stop himself. When he reached the classroom door, he saw a bloody shadow slide out from the classroom. Time slowed for Zhu Jining. His gaze fell on the person's face. It was a face sewn together by many different faces, and every single one of them captured emotions of fear, terror, and pain. I knew the classroom was not safe. Unable to stop himself, Zhu Jining rammed directly into the wall of the corridor. Ignoring the pain that shot through his body, he pushed himself off the wall and turned to run. The combination of pain and fear had muddled his mind. Without seeing where he was going, Zhu Jining saw the first exit and he rushed into it. When he entered, he realized it was the corner toilet. Why would he trap himself? Chen Ji was becoming more and more curious about what exactly this man stumbled across in the female bedroom. Also, why is he alone? Where is his friend? After giving it some thought, Chen Ji thought it was best if he could get the answer directly from the man. He touched the skin mask on his face before entering the toilet. It was not until he was inside the toilet that Zhu Jining realized he had taken the wrong turn, but there was nothing else he could do. He yanked open a random cubicle, which was the fourth one, and hid inside it. He clamped his palm over his mouth and squeezed his muscular body to fit beside the toilet, his heart racing and his pupils darting about nervously. Zhu Jining was really scared out of his mind. When they were playing the pen spirit game, he had sat across from Fei Yuling, and while his friend was busy analyzing, he had seen the pen spirit slowly appear behind Fei Yuling. When the woman's bloated face appeared in his mind, he also felt like the air was getting sucked out of his lungs. That wasn't an actor. This haunted house is really haunted. They had searched the bedroom, including under the bed, before starting the game. They were sure there was no one hiding inside the room. That poor woman had appeared out of thin air. It has to be a ghost. The woman's face refused to leave Ju Jinning's mind. Even when he closed his eyes, the woman could be seen swaying from the hanging rope. He felt extremely helpless as he leaned against the wall. He felt weirdly exposed. Yuling is still inside the room. The ghost was standing on his shoulders. A scene like that wouldn't appear in real life, would it? Ju Jinning took several deep breaths. He felt like he was going lightheaded from a lack of oxygen. I need to contact the people outside. This haunted house is problematic. He tried to tell himself not to be afraid, but his muscular arms kept shivering. He rummaged in his backpack for a long time before he found his phone. Xiaoju. Why are you calling me? Are you guys done with the video? The squat middle-aged man's voice came from the other end. Brother Yuan, please come in to help me. There are actual ghosts inside this haunted house. Ju Jinning's voice was trembled with tears. I don't know how much longer I can hold on. There are God knows how many ghosts looking for me. Isn't it normal for haunted house to have ghosts? The middle-aged man thought Ju Jinning was joking. Not ghosts played by actors but actual ghosts. Ju Jinning hissed urgently. He did not dare raise his voice lest the ghosts outside heard him. The middle-aged man finally noticed the seriousness in Ju Jinning's voice. Give the phone to Yuling, let me talk to him. Brother Liang was possessed by the ghost. He is still trapped inside that cursed bedroom. Possessed. I saw it with my own eyes. The ghost was standing on his shoulders. It was a hanging ghost. The face was purplish white, and her eyes were popping out from their sockets. Standing on his shoulders. You guys were assaulted by the workers. Okay. We're going in now. Not THE workers, it's real ghost. There are no worker inside this haunted house. Before Ju Jinning could finish, footsteps came from the toilet entrance. Has the ghost entered? What are you talking about? Hello. The middle-aged man's voice came from the phone. Afraid that it might catch the ghost's attention, Ju Jinning quickly ended the call. Hopefully, it doesn't hear me. Please don't let it discover me, and I won't ever visit this place again. Ju Jinning turned off the phone, bent down, and stared straight at the wooden door of the cubicle. He did not know when the door before him would be pulled open, and he did not know what might be beyond the door. Various scary images filled his mind, like the scary woman's face appearing behind the door or a school uniform fluttering on its own into his cubicle. What should I do? Brother Yuan, please come soon. He prayed to himself. The sound of footsteps came closer and closer. Creak. The door to the first cubicle was pushed open. The old wooden door creaked audibly, and it caused Ju Jinning to hold his breath in fear. After a small pause, the second cubicle door was pushed open. It's getting closer. After another long pause, as he expected, the third door was pushed open. It's right next to me. It'll open this door soon. The muscles all over Ju Jinning's body tensed. Fear and terror were tormenting his sanity. Time trickled by, but weirdly enough, no one opened the door to his cubicle. He waited for half a minute, and the door to his cubicle was still unmoved. It left. He gathered all his courage to pull open the door a sliver. There was nothing outside. It really left. He pushed the door slowly open, and there was really no one outside. That was lucky. I was almost discovered. After sighing in relief, Ju Jinning called the middle-aged man's number again. As the light shone on his phone, he saw something reflected on the phone display. He looked behind him, and on top of the door of the third cubicle, a disjointed face was silently looking at him. The phone slid through his fingers and landed on the floor. A voice could still be heard on the other end. Yuling's phone is not reachable. What happened to you guys in there? Xiaoju. Can you hear me? Ju Jinning. Are you alright? Talk to me. Of course, Ju Jinning could hear him, but at that moment, he had lost the power of speech. His pupils rolled back, and Ju Jinning slithered to the floor like wet laundry. Didn't I warn you not to take pictures and videos inside the haunted house? Why didn't you listen? Chen Ji removed his mask and placed it inside his pocket. He glanced at Ju Jinning, who was convulsing on the floor, and he had a renewed appreciation for the disclaimer agreement. His scare tactics were different from other haunted houses. Normal haunted houses had actors pretend to be ghosts who hid in the blind corner to scare the visitors with sudden screams and shouts. Chen Ji's tactic was different. His focus was on the creation of the atmosphere, and he allowed the visitors to walk into the scare on their own. The whole process was foolproof and could not be detected earlier. Even when the visitors were already prepared, they would still be scared. Zhu Jining was the perfect example. The fear inside his heart, which had no place to release, was like an ice cube lodged in his throat, stopping his breath and chilling his bones. Chen Ji exited the third cubicle, picked up the phone, and slid it inside Zhu Jining's pocket before dragging the man out of the toilet and depositing him in the corridor. Why haven't the spasms stopped? But he's still breathing, so he should be fine. Chen Zhen applied pressure to the man's temples, and when Zhu Jining's pupils regained focus, he said, "Can you hear me? Where is your friend who came in with you?" There was no answer, so Chen Ji had to give up on the man. Stay put, or else you might run into an actual ghost. He was afraid that he might scare the other person dumb as well, so Chen Ji removed his bloodied outfit and carried it in his arm. This man came running out from the female dormitory, so his friend should be there. Chen Ji ran toward the dormitory, but even after he searched through all the bedrooms, he could not find Fei Yulang. Where did he go? He stopped at the room with the pen spirit. The pen that he had fixed with tape was broken once more and was lying on the floor. There is no sign of fighting in the room, so where could the bespectacled man have gone? Chen Ji exited the female dormitory and reached the junction. Could he have gone down the other way? The other route led to the deep well and school office. The road was uneven, and after passing several offices, Chen Ji finally found Fei Yulang. The man's condition was even worse than Zhu Jining's. There was white foam around his lips, and his glasses were shattered. However, the most curious thing was that he was lying near the well at the end of the corridor with one of his hands holding the edge of the well like he was going to haul himself into it. What in the world happened to this guy? Looks like he has angered more than just the pen spirit. There was no surveillance in this new scenario, so Chen Ji had no idea what had happened to Fei Yulang. Looking at the man's worse-for-wear condition, Chen Ji very kindly checked his pulse. The man's condition is very similar to He San's when he first visited the haunted house. I'd better get him out of here first. After wasting plenty of energy, Chen Ji finally managed to drag the two to the scenario entrance. Prying open the wooden boards, he just finished dragging the two onto the first floor when he heard the sound of an argument coming from outside the haunted house. It sounded like the people from Qin Guang Studio were attempting to barge into the haunted house. So much trouble today. With one arm under each visitor, he dragged the two out of the haunted house. Chen Ji dropped Fei Yulang and Zhu Jining before the people from Qin Guang Studio. His eyes scanned the lot of them as he demanded, "What is the commotion about?" Two lively, vibrant men had walked into the haunted house, and two lifeless husks had come out. One of them was even foaming at the mouth. Did he get scared until he vomited? The surrounding crowd immediately took a step back to clear a space for them. Xiaoju. Yulang. The people from Qin Guang Studio immediately rushed over to help them off the ground. Zhu Jining was recovering, he now responded to others at least, but his legs were still weak. The serious case was Fei Yulang. He was not unconscious because his eyes were wide open, but he did not respond to people calling his name. His expression was blank, and the white foam continued to trail out of the corner of his lips. What have you done to the both of them? The middle-aged man demanded angrily. Why would you ask me? How would I know? Chen Ji was being honest. When he entered the scenario, the two were already in such a state. We talked to each other earlier. Xiaoju said that your employees stepped on Yulang's shoulders. How dare you allow your workers to assault the visitors? We are definitely going to sue. Who saw my employees assault him? Chen Ji glanced at the two lying on the floor. Feel free to call the police. I can guarantee, other than their own hands, you won't be able to find foreign fingerprints on the rest of their bodies. Stop arguing, I'll call the park's doctor. The most important thing now is to help them. This was such a headache for Uncle Shu. They're in this state, and you still refuse to admit your fault. Thankfully, we came prepared. The middle-aged man opened Fei Yulang's backpack and pulled out the laptop from within. Then he connected the wireless camera from Fei Yulang's chest and the audio recorder attached to the backpack to the laptop. Indeed, you people sure came prepared. When Chen Ji was dragging the bodies out of the haunted house earlier, he had already noticed the cameras and could guess the real motive behind why they were there. However, he did not mind it one bit. Other haunted houses banned recording was because they were afraid that their set designs would be leaked. After all, designing a set was incredibly pricey. However, that was not a concern for Chen Ji. He would be given new scenarios after completing trial missions. In terms of the updating speed for new scenarios, no haunted house could rival Chen Ji. From his perspective, the videos collected by these guys were a type of alternative advertisement. After all, what his haunted house was missing most was exposure. You won't be so smug in a bit. I will keep the video of your employees physically assaulting the visitors as evidence. The middle-aged man said loudly, like he was trying to get the attention of the passing crowd. We are absolute professionals, we didn't not lay a finger on your people. How many times do you want me to repeat that? Chen Ji asked as he wandered over to the laptop. He, too, was actually curious about what happened to Fei Yuling inside the haunted house and why he ended up next to the well. The middle-aged man straightened the laptop and played the recorded video. The screen was dark, and only random noises could be heard. At the time, Fei Yuling had not entered the haunted house. The recorder had probably been activated beforehand. The camera had not been taken out yet, so they could only hear noises but could see no image. Several seconds later, Chen Ji's voice could be heard from the computer. Let me remind you, the last person who made a claim like yours came out on his back. Then Fei Yuling's condescending laugh followed. You've only managed to arouse my interest even more. The sound coming from the laptop was not loud, but everyone could hear him clearly. Everyone turned to look at Fei Yuling, who was collapsed on the floor with foam on his lips, and their expressions were mixed. The middle-aged man sensed the crowd opinion shifting, so he quickly fast-forwarded. 1 or 2 minutes later, an image finally appeared on screen. Zhu Jining and Fei Yuling had officially entered the haunted house. The visitors outside were curious about the interior design, some even pushed forward, attempting to see the hidden traps and layout. The Muyang High School scenario was built underground, so it was very quiet. The recorder picked up the pair's conversation clearly, including how they discussed posting the guide online and hiring a 50-cent army to swamp the haunted house with bad reviews. So, these people are here to purposely create trouble. We almost believed them earlier. The crowd started to mumble, and the middle-aged man had no choice but to fast-forward some more. Due to the lack of lighting, the images were not clear. All they could see was a dim corridor and empty classrooms on both sides, but that was already scary enough. The people from Chin Guang Studio did not shoot this video to help Chen Ji promote his haunted house. They were looking for evidence of Chen Ji ordering his employees to assault his visitors, but after 6 minutes of footage, all they could see was Fei Yuling and Zhu Jining being scared on camera. There was not even the shadow of a worker. The people from Chin Guang Studio started to get worried, but the visitors were increasingly curious. Such a large haunted house, but they did not have even one employee playing the ghost. Then, how did they plan to scare their visitors? Very soon, the video reached the point where the two were playing the pen spirit game. When Chen Ji heard the familiar question asked by Fei Yuling, he almost bit his tongue. He finally understood what the pair did that angered the pen spirit so. The video after that was even weirder. Zhu Jining suddenly dropped his hand and escaped from the room while Fei Yuling started writing madly on the white paper. You will die. You will die. You will die. Looking at the words that appeared on the paper, the surrounding visitors were confused. What is he doing? Mental breakdown. There's no need to trouble the park's doctor. We should call the mental hospital directly. In other words, 2 of them entered the haunted house, and one of them was scared dumb by his friend. Watching this video, Chen Ji sighed greatly in relief. Other than 2 victims, only he knew what really happened. The pen spirit must have appeared then, but it was unknown whether it could not be captured on camera or the camera angle was wrong. Regardless, the pen spirit did not show on the video, however, what was recorded was the eerie situation. The video continued to play, and Chen Ji leaned in closer. He was most interested in what happened next. After Zhu Jining escaped, Fei Yuling was left alone in the room. The man who was scrawling madly on the paper suddenly stopped. The camera was pinned to his chest, and the video stood still for several seconds. Then the image tipped backwards. Fei Yuling seemed to have fainted. No one touched him, right? Yeah, so why did he faint? 10 seconds later, something even weirder happened. The camera angle suddenly moved. Fei Yuling was standing up again. He walked unevenly out of the bedroom. The camera was shaking violently. It felt like the man had forgotten how to walk as he tipped left and right. A fainted person who suddenly stood up and walked on his own. That had never happened before in Chen Ji's years of experience dealing with fainted visitors. This man had probably been taken over by the pen spirit. Chen Ji did not say anything, but his eyes narrowed. Fei Yuling soon familiarized himself with his body. A few seconds later, he picked up his speed, and his gait was no different from a normal person's. When he reached the junction, Chen Ji and Zhu Jining had just entered the toilet. They had brushed past each other just like that. The pen spirit was trying to escape the haunted house. Chen Ji was spooked by the thought. If not for the incident that happened after this, the pen spirit might have successfully escaped. In the video, Fei Yuling seemed to realize that there were people inside the toilet, so he snuck past the toilet before running toward the sealed classroom. His target was clear. He walked toward the last row and hugged one of the uniforms to his chest. When he was about to leave, he saw the paper box with the 24 name tags Chen Ji left on the lectern. As if remembering something horrible, Fei Yuling deposited the tags on the table hurriedly. After pulling one out and placing it in his pocket, he ran toward the exit. However, before that could happen, the broken door of the classroom closed on its own. Then, the weirdest part of the video occurred. Fei Yuling turned around to yell at the empty classroom. I also treat this classroom as our home, but I have my reason to leave. I have to explain this to Wang Xin. Please let me go. I promise to come back after I'm done. Get away from me. I have to leave today. No one is going to stop me. Fei Yuling maddened screams came from the computer. He yelled angrily at the empty classroom. Let me go. Let me go. The camera kept shaking before falling to the ground like it had been knocked off in a struggle. From that angle, the camera perfectly focused on Fei Yuling's expression, which was changing madly like there were more than 10 different personalities inside his body at the same time. Several seconds later, the expression on Fei Yuling's face returned to normal, and the classroom door opened. Without a word, he picked up the camera and replaced it on his chest. Then, like a puppet, he walked toward the deepest part of the Muyang High School scenario. At that time, Chen Ji's black phone vibrated. He pulled his phone out silently before taking several steps back, but he kept his gaze on the laptop. While all this had been happening, he had been inside the corner toilet. There was only a wall between them, but he had not heard any commotion from the classroom next door. It felt like, after the classroom door was closed, the space within shifted to another dimension. The video continued to play. Fei Yuling, who was moving in an awkward way, took deliberate steps toward the well. He stepped on the edge of the well and started to talk to himself. Are we going to jump? I can understand Chen Yalin's pain, she has her own reason. If I were in her position, I believe I would do the same thing. After all, Wang Xin was her best friend. Then, shall we give her another chance? Fei Yuling stepped back down from the well. His expression slowly returned to a blank face, and with a tilt of his head, he collapsed to the floor. Around 4 minutes later, Chen Ji arrived. The camera had recorded everything. The first thing Chen Ji did was perform first aid, and everyone watching the video could bear witness to that. The boss didn't do anything wrong. If anything, he was trying to save your friend. We almost blamed an innocent person. The people from Qin Guang's studio were made speechless. By that time, Chen Ji had retreated to the outer ring of the crowd, and he glanced at the black phone. Dear Specters favored. Congratulations on triggering the hidden mission at 2-star scenario, Muyang High School, the Pen Spirit's Wish. Like and subscribe.